Welcome back to the movie Recap Fox. Today I will tell you about the beautiful 2016 sci-fi drama film Passengers. Spoilers ahead, beware. Enjoy watching. The interstellar spacecraft Avalon travels through space, heading for a colonized planet called Homestead 2. All its premises are empty, the ship is on autopilot. 258 crew members and 5,000 passengers are in suspended animation. Suddenly, the ship passes through an asteroid belt, weakening its shields. The energy is diverted to the main shield, but the ship is on a collision course with a giant asteroid. Suddenly, an asteroid collides with the ship, causing various malfunctions. The ship begins to self-repair, but one of the sleeper pods is activated. The awakened passenger is Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer. His pod opens and an automated system wakes him up, telling him that he has spent 120 years in suspended animation and that the ship is only 4 months away from Homestead, so he can spend that time enjoying the life of luxury on the ship. Jim receives instructions about his ID tape, his quarters, and the main activities that can be done on the ship. Excited and nervous about meeting people on the ship, he probably leaves the cabin and goes to the classroom reserved for the entire study group. Jim looks a little worried when the hologram talks about the situation on Earth, calling it overcrowded and too expensive. The hologram tells him that all questions can be asked at the end of the lesson, but Jim keeps asking why he woke up alone. He realizes that the hologram cannot answer his question, so he goes in search of other people. He enters the main vestibule of the ship. There is no one there either, but the information desk offers help. Jim asks to talk to a real person and he sends him to talk to the steward, but when Jim finds that there is no one there, he asks to talk to the captain. When he reaches the captain's post, he finds that there is no access from outside, but he sees that the main crew is also sleeping. In the end, he goes to the observatory, where he learns that the ship will actually arrive at Homestead 2, only after 90 years. He realizes he woke up early, so he hurries back to the lobby and sends a message to the ground asking what he should do because he doesn't know how to get back to sleep. The system informs him that he will receive an answer from the Earth only after 55 years. Jim is shocked. Suddenly he saw a bar in which a living person was sitting. Jim was delighted, but something about the bartender seems strange to him. When the bartender goes to get a drink, Jim realizes it's an android. His name is Arthur. Jim wants to know more information from him, but the android cannot explain why he woke up early. The next day, Jim wakes up in his cabin and goes to the buffet, where he quickly realizes that most of the items on the menu are for VIP passengers only. He takes his regular coffee and tries to figure out how to fix his sleep chamber. After he gets all the tools, he manages to get the camera working and lies down inside, but nothing happens. He then decides to use the tools he found to infiltrate the chamber where the crew is sleeping, but he also fails. Jim keeps going back to the bar to talk to Arthur. The android advises him not to worry about what he can't change. After that, Jim gets into one of the VIP rooms and has fun on the ship. Jim tries all the restaurants, games and fun on the ship. But over time, he becomes even more unhappy. One day, he gets drunk, wanders through the hibernation pods, and stumbles upon an airlock with spacesuits designed for spacewalks. Jim puts on his suit and walks to the airlock, pushes the lever and then the button to open the airlock door. Once outside the ship, he is mesmerized by what he sees. Jim releases the magnets on his boots and floats in space. He goes back inside, takes off his suit, but returns to the airlock. He pulls the lever, ready to end it all, but at the last moment he changes his mind and runs back inside. Jim gets up and is immediately attracted to the woman in one of the pods named Aurora. He looks for her files in the catalog, listens to her interviews and falls in love with her. Later, he sat next to Aurora's capsule and listened to her interview. Back at the bar, he reads some of her articles and talks to Arthur about her writing. He becomes obsessed with the irony of his situation, going to another planet in search of a better life. He woke up ahead of time and now he is destined to die on the ship. But here he found his ideal woman, who still remains out of reach for him. Jim keeps thinking about her and gets the idea to wake up Aurora. He discusses it with the android but cannot make a decision. If he wakes her for his own gain, she will have to die with him on this ship. Jim initially dismisses the idea, but later he changed his mind. He approaches her pod and activates it. When she wakes up and goes through the same process as him, he hides and returns to his place. A little later, he goes to the main lobby, hoping to find her, and here she is, just as confused as he was a year ago. Jim tells her that they are the only ones who are awake and takes her to the observatory. He also informs her that he cannot get to either the crew or the ship's high command. Aurora goes crazy and wants to go back to her capsule. As they approach the pod, Jim explains that there is no special equipment on the ship that can help them sleep, effectively telling her that they are stuck. They return to the lobby and he tells her that she should rest as she has just come out of suspended animation. Jim returns to the bar regretting what he did. He asks Arthur not to tell Aurora that he woke her up. Aurora wakes up the next day. She returns to the lobby and asks the automated information desk about how she can get back to sleep. Jim joins her and they go to breakfast. As they leave, there is some kind of malfunction at the information desk. At the buffet, Aurora realizes that Jim has been eating the same breakfast for over a year now and treats him to a VIP breakfast. They talk about being able to fix the pods, but unlike Jim, Aurora isn't ready to give up. She searches the infirmary, looks through the research papers, then approaches the room where the crew sleeps and tries to break down the doors. Jim notices more and more malfunctions throughout the ship. Unable to find a solution to the problem, Aurora writes, runs and swims in the pool. She decides to interview Jim. She asks why he immigrated to the colony. Jim initially responds with company slogans, but then explains that he hopes to build a new life in a new world. On Earth, all the work is done by robots, but he is a professional in his field. His knowledge and skills will be needed on Homestead too. Later they go to the observatory and Aurora informs him of her reason for choosing to fly to another planet. Unlike the other passengers on the ship, she has a round-trip ticket. Her idea was to go to Homestead too, live there for a year, and then return to Earth to become the first journalist ever to do so, writing the greatest article that virtually everyone on Earth will read. Aurora gradually comes to terms with their predicament. Jim is looking for a way to cheer her up. He takes her to dances, movies, and the basketball court. Then he takes her to a bar. There he introduces Aurora to Arthur. She relaxes a bit until she remembers their situation. Jim is left alone with the android, feeling terrible about waking her up. To cheer Aurora up, he decides to make a miniature of the Chrysler building for her. After a while, they go on a date to a bar. They have lunch and share stories about their lives. She tells him that her father died when she was a teenager. After dinner, Jim takes Aurora to the airlock and they put on spacesuits. They go out into outer space together. Jim turns off the magnets on their boots and they float through space together. They go back inside and immediately kiss, go to his cabin. Soon after, they start living as a couple. Aurora moves into his cabin and writes about her life on the ship. They run together, eat together, live together. Jim explores the ship and finds a hydroponics bay. He gives roses to Aurora. For Aurora's birthday, Jim is about to propose to her and leaves to prepare the ring. At this time, Arthur says that it was Jim who woke her up. When Jim arrives, he confesses that he really did it. From this, Aurora is in such shock that she becomes ill and starts hysterical. From that day on, Aurora completely avoids Jim and hates him. One night she comes to him and starts beating him badly. Jim tries to explain himself, but Aurora doesn't want to listen to him. The ship is buggy more and more. Wanting to make peace, Jim gives Aurora a gift. He plants a tree in the center of the hall. All systems on board begin to fail. Jim gets stuck in an elevator, and suddenly they hear that mate Gus Mancuso has woken up. They quickly bring him up to date and finally get to the captain's bridge. They try to figure out what's wrong, but find that there is no diagnostic data, so they had to search everything manually. Mancuso discovers that a timer has failed in Jim's pod and several critical systems have failed in his pod. Mancuso also discovered that Jim had activated the Aurora capsule on his own. Mancuso condemns Jim for his actions. After waking up, the captain's assistant does not feel well. According to the conclusion of the medical capsule, Mancuso has 612 pathologies. The medical pod informs him that he has a few hours to live. Mancuso gives them his bracelet and they say goodbye to him. The ship's control system is out of order. The ship's gravity system also stops working. Arthur goes crazy too. They find the cause of the breakdown. They need to open the shaft to cool the reactor, but they can't do it. Jim decides he will open the reactor shaft by hand. Aurora stays on the ship to wait for Jim's signal. Jim decides to act, even if he may die, opens the shaft and is thrown back by a fiery stream. His suit is damaged and he begins to choke. But Aurora puts on a spacesuit, flies after him and saves him. Jim is dead. She brings him into a medical capsule and starts all kinds of resuscitation and Jim revives. The ship is saved. Arthur is repaired and Jim learns that it is possible to fall asleep again in a medical capsule. He invites Aurora to plunge into suspended animation, but she refuses and they live their whole lives on the ship. After 88 years, all other passengers and crew members wake up. From the message left, everyone will know how Jim and Aurora lived their happy life on the ship.